I had a conversation earlier this week with a client, and I went into this firestorm, and I was surprised by it. I didn't really understand what was going on. And here's the beauty of putting together your call plan. If we know who is going to be in the room, right? We understand who the people are that we're going to be meeting with, and we anticipate their objectives. We anticipate the objectives of others, and we know our objectives, and we design for specific desired next steps. Basically put together our call plan. You've seen this before on the whiteboard. And for those of you that it's the first time you're seeing this, this is Whiteboard Wednesday. I do this every Wednesday. I push content live on LinkedIn using the whiteboard. I also do this on YouTube, and we are at 775 subscribers on YouTube, so pretty exciting stuff. But first thing I want to understand is who's going to be in the room when I'm doing my call plan. I want to anticipate the objectives of others. I want to know what my objectives are, and I want to know what the specific desired next steps are. When you know this going into a meeting, and then you sit down in that meeting and you get something different that happens, you know something has gone potentially wrong. Either you didn't anticipate the objectives properly, or something's happening on the other person's end. Something's changed. So when things don't go according to your plan, now you can start to make some adjustments, and you can make a decision. You can decide, do I actually want to cut the meeting off? Do I want to just end the meeting right there? Sometimes that's the move. Sometimes you can't do it. Let's just say that you have to go forward with the meeting. So the next thing you want to do is you want to give them a chance to share, hey, what would you like to learn? What are your objectives? So instead of anticipating the objectives, which is what we had over here, now we're actually saying, look, what do you want to accomplish? What's the best thing that we can accomplish here in this meeting from your perspective? Sometimes people will lack clarity. So give them the space to provide a little bit of direction and just ask some questions. The thing I like to do is I like to ask this specific question. What questions do you have for me? What question do you have for me? When I ask that question of somebody else, I get a view of perspective. I get to know kind of how are they thinking? Where are they at? What are some of the things that they're looking for? Now, here's the challenge. When someone answers this and asks that specific question, it is not common for me to respond to that question immediately. Typically what I will do is I will ask a follow-up question, a clarifying question, because when they ask that first question, what I need to understand is, does that mean something in the context of A, or does that mean something in the context of B? If I guess wrong, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. And this is where communication starts to break down. We start to run into these challenges in communication because we assume that we heard the question one way, and that's what somebody meant, rather than trusting that they communicated something properly and then verifying it. So trust but verify. Remember, there are things that are said, there are things that are heard, and there are things that are remembered, and very rarely are they all the same, especially if you're in a situation where someone is in a heightened or elevated state. And that heightened or elevated state could be for any reason. It could be that they got in an argument with their spouse earlier in the day. It could be that they just found out that they're getting put on a performance improvement plan. It could be that they had an unforeseen expense come across their desk. There's so many different reasons why this plan is not aligned with the actual reality. Once you see that the plan is not aligned with the actual reality, that's where you get a chance to adjust. The most common mistake that I see people make in this scenario is they push their plan forward. Even when things are disconnected, they push their plan forward because they have an agenda. They have an agenda that they have to go through. They have to check the boxes. Here's the thing I'm going to ask you to do. Reflect on conversations that you've had in the last 3 weeks. How many times did you go into that conversation just to check the box? How many times did you go into that conversation to actually learn something? How many times did you go into the conversation to gain clarity around who will do what by when? If I can come out of a meeting, even in a bad meeting over here that doesn't align, and I have clarity around whether we're talking about A or B, and I know who will do what by when, I will be able to get things back on track and within the next couple of weeks, get back to my objective here, which was the original call plan. This is about playing the long game. It's not about pushing forward your specific agenda. It's about moving toward achieving a given set of results over a period of time. Sometimes it's going to take a little bit longer than you anticipate to achieve those results. But if you're actually making progress in each engagement by understanding who will do what by when, connecting those into specific next steps, you'll be on the path to achieving results. If you're looking for help with some of this stuff, give me a call. Many of the challenges that we run into in business, with family, for ourselves, really come down to communication challenges. What was said, what was heard, what was remembered, who will do what by when, and then ultimately helping people hold themselves accountable to getting those things done. If you're looking for some help around this, or you'd want to work through some of the conversation with your team around how they can get better using a tool like a whiteboard, you know a guy. I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving. Can't wait to see what's next. If you're not following me on YouTube, please do so. We're up to 775, and I'd like to see what we can do to get to 1,000 people before the end of the year. We started at 300. We're at 775 right now. Happy Thanksgiving.